Provisional figures from the Motor Traffic and Transport Department also show that more than 12,000 people sustained injuries in road traffic accidents last year. Dr. Vincent Ativo says some of the most serious injuries leave survivors of road accidents less capable of being as productive as they were before, a major economic loss to the victims' families as well as the nation. Besides, the healing process for survivors can be long, slow, painful, and costly.
I need $300,000 for surgery before I can get back my hand. The only thing I can use my hand to do is to write, or even if to point it on you, I can't. And I can't use to eat. If I try to take it on my mouth, it can't. So I use my left hand to do everything. The wound is still in for the past 15 years, but the wound is still in. Yeah, so I feel the pain sometimes when the weather is cold. Yeah, I feel the pain.
This was a little boy, a teenager, who had to go to school all by himself, and usually he crosses a major road. So he was knocked down as a pedestrian by a moving bus. His tibia bone was completely off, broken into two. So physiotherapy started whilst he was an inpatient. He was treated over 2 to 3 months in the ward. And mostly during inpatient care, physiotherapy sees you on an almost daily basis. So this little boy had us almost every day coming to him to try and prevent joint contractures, to improve the unaffected joints, to prevent muscle wasting. And then within 2 to 3 months, we were able to get him out of bed using the unaffected leg. So he had to start with crutches. But all in all, we used about 6 months of rehabilitation to see this gentleman through. And all this while, his school hours are lost, because he wouldn't be able to catch up to what is happening. So this is how bad the situation can be. Sometimes too, it could be the fact that we have to see them in a continuous manner, and before you realize, the bills will be rising, and the parents or the carers would now be complaining. When they see you, they tend to frown, because they know that anytime that you turn up in the ward, it means their bills are going up.
The critical question now is, how do we stop these avoidable deaths? For someone whose arm bears a constant reminder of the moment he narrowly escaped a mortuary attendant who was bent on locking him up in a fridge, Gabby can't stand reckless road users. Motorists who flout road regulations with impunity shouldn't be left off the hook.
Whether they like it or not, I'll say it. Because I speak as a victim. I don't speak for government. The truth is one. Road safety. Government doesn't have interest in road safety. Why that? The accident annually, it killed not less than 200 people, 2,000 people. It's like the multimedia has organized a program at theater, and the whole National Theatre is full of people. That's the life that we're talking about too. And we lose all these people and we don't see anything. So sometimes I ask, why? Our leaders, are they interested of the shed of the blood or whatever? Because I don't see why we kill 10, 20 people and we form a task force to fight against. And these vehicles are killing us. But if you dare to go out to even go and make sure they do the right thing, the political party, they just rise against you, and you want to make my government unpopular. If we really want to stop the accident, we must to form a task force as they're doing with the anti-galamsey and those things.
It's very difficult to actually understand why, again, in our part of the world, we are not able to obey rules. For me, I see that over here, we have gotten some basics wrong. And those basics that we have gotten them wrong, they are actually allowing all these things to happen. And when I talk about the basics, I'm talking about, we even start from, let's say, before somebody is even allowed to drive on the road. The driver, many people on our roads, they drive even without valid licenses. And that alone, it's a big problem. And if there are those who have the valid licenses too, most of them don't acquire them through the right means. I can just tell you of the little experience I've had. Before moving to Australia, I had driven for over 5 years in Ghana. I had a Ghana driver's license. But when I went there, I was made to sit for another exam. And until I passed, I never had my driver license.
I told the government that, one, our transport unions, when the driver comes in and they inspect the licenses and the driver finish pay the money to join the association, that's all. No refresher courses, everything. So if you really want to save the accident situations in the country, one, the politicians' interference must be stopped.
Here, anybody who has not even moved a car before can acquire a driver license. And so your guess is as good as mine. If such a person who has never had the opportunity to go through driving lessons is on the road, they can just misbehave anyhow. So for me, I think that basic aspect that we've gotten wrong, it's allowing all these problems to come.
A driver kill people or whatever, and we call it misdemeanor. You only find a driver or even put him in prison for 2 years. So one, they need to change that law, because now it has become the national anthem for the drivers. You stand there. After all, if I knock you down or if I kill you, I have only 24 hours to spend in cells. So that one is in their mind, you see. And if you take a driver to court, the only thing the court will do is just to find a driver. And one penalty unit is 12 cedis. Minimum of 12 points, 10 points, maximum of 36 points.
And aside that, of course, the nature of our roads. The nature of our roads, they leave much to be desired. Common things like even road markings are absent. So sometimes you're on the road and you don't know whether you are in your lane or in someone else's lane. And these things are basic things which we need to get right. But unfortunately, in our part of the world, it looks like all that we care about is that there's something on the road. The road has been asphalted, and so that's enough. But that is not.
With overwhelming number of deaths recorded in road accidents, one wonders whether government agencies mandated to ensure safety on our roads are up to the task. One of them is the National Road Safety Commission, whose job is to create safety awareness among road users. Its Executive Director, Engineer May Obri-Yeboah, insists the Commission is not failing in its duty to save lives.
If we didn't have an institution like ours to be in place, to be working all these years, I tell you, we would have seen more crashes on our roads with its attendant deaths and injuries. Because we have, other countries have, records to show. And I think even with us, we have some records that show that if they do nothing situation, if nothing was being done at all, it would have been worse than this. I am not happy as the head of National Road Safety with the number of deaths and injuries, because we went as low as almost 1,800 in 2016. Now what happened? How come we are coming back to the 2,000 deaths per year? I think something drastic has to be done. So we have not failed. We will continue if we get the resources, human, financial, the support of all our stakeholders. We think we can do better than this.
Following upsurge in road accidents, President Akufo-Addo in April approved an action plan to deal with the menace. An interministerial committee concluded that road safety education needed to be intensified, road traffic laws applied strictly, and feeder roads improved. The National Road Safety Commission, which will be taking charge of education, has been allocated additional 6.5 million cedis to push its road safety agenda. The money is expected to support the Commission's latest interventions, one of which will make it mandatory for commercial drivers to take refresher courses on defensive driving and road safety.
We think that driving is a profession. You need to be trained, have some refresher courses, but I can tell you some of them, since they became drivers, have never had a refresher course. The law also says that each one of them, before they go, either they upgrade or they even go to renew their licenses, they need to show evidence of training. And therefore this year, that is the intention, ourselves together with DVLA and then the driving schools and other stakeholders who are ready to support, to take about 50,000 or more drivers to the classroom to train them in their profession. There are certain things that they take for granted. How to even perceive things when you're on the road, as the vehicles come driving at night, what do you look out for? All of those things are things that we need to refresh them or renew their minds on. So we hoped that by July we should start this project from July all the way to the end of the year. Maybe we start by registering them, etc. Because you know there are various institutions, driving associations and all that. We are trying to, we'll meet them very soon and then get the numbers and where they are. We also want to focus just not anybody. You know, there are certain drivers that are using specific routes and we have the accident prone routes. So we would, for this time, we may be a bit selective from the beginning. Try to get drivers who ply these accident prone routes. Those that we start with them. The law mandates them to do it. For a long time, DVLA is supposed to ensure that they enforce this, because as you go to renew your license or whatever it is you want to do at DVLA, they have to look out for a certificate to show. So this time round, we are going to enforce it. Definitely from next year, it's going to be punitive. If you don't do it, you'll be sanctioned.
Per its mandate, the National Road Safety Commission cannot demand compliance. Also, the absence of an institution to regulate activities of private transport operators does not help matters. Engineer Briyabua says a transport regulator will ensure operators adhere to the highest safety standards.
If there was a regulator, then there will be things that you have to do before you can become an entity, to be able to have a transport organization, to be able to run transport on our roads, and then there'll be sanctions for certain things. Some of them go beyond just sanctions, but to go to court, because when it involves a crash that some people have died, etc. But like you rightly said, if it's to be a particular company that it's always involved, or mostly we see being involved in crashes, then the regulator can say, I'm sanctioning you until maybe you do this, or put these things in place. I'm not going to allow you to work. But I must say that we were also interested, even though we are not a regulator, was what is happening to VIP. Because always we hear the VIP. We went to VIP and we looked in their records. Most of these crashes are not them. Others have come up, companies also writing the VIP and VIP on their vehicles, and they are also red. So as soon as you see them, you think it's the VIP we know, the one that is stationed at Circle. So we went to them and we said, then there's the really need of this operator, so regulator, so that we will look at the list. If it's VIP what, so that we can be able to distinguish between the various groups. Otherwise, they are hanging some people with a bad name. It is not them, but that's what's happening. However, this is not to say that we are not saying VIP maybe is doing it all well on the road. If anything of that sort comes to our notice, like we did this time in January, we went to them, sat down with their executives, talked to them about some of the things we ourselves see on the road concerning some of their drivers, and they have told us now they even have a road safety somebody who is, before each of them goes on the road, he goes in to talk to the passengers, etc., so that if there should be something good to report to and all that. We are hopeful that these are some of the things that the others will continue. We've said it severally, and it should be punitive if you are not doing it. And if we were regulated or by our mandate, if we're able to sanction some of them, these are some of the things we can do. Once you are not going by it, and that is not helping in safety, then we can take you on as an entity. Our mandate, as at now, is to educate, collaborate, coordinate, etc. And it sometimes becomes a bit difficult for us when we cannot demand compliance from some of our stakeholders. So our bill also to become an agency is also at cabinet level, and if we get that support in addition, then by law we are mandated to demand our compliance from our stakeholders. If any of our stakeholders are not working as we think is proper, and we give them notice, I mean, by law we can do that. Give them notice, they don't do, then there may be sanctions. So this is another angle of it. If we get our bill and then become an agency by an act, it will also help us in that direction.
With the support of road accident victims like Gabi, the National Road Safety Commission hopes to correct misguided notions of drivers and reorient them to become more safety conscious.
As a role of road safety ambassador, I've been going to churches, mosques, lorry stations, schools, just to create awareness and also educate the public on road safety issues. Also, I go on the road, the highways with the police MTTD, inspect the drivers, their tires, windscreen, seat belting, fire extinguisher, warning triangle, and all those things. And the road safety, the police check their licenses too. Sometimes I go with the police, MTTD, DVLA, and road safety. They will go and inspect all vehicles on the road.
When we have the drivers or other stakeholders rebelling, and we don't get support of corporate Ghana or all Ghanaians, and then the political will, it becomes also very difficult for us to accomplish what we want to do. You want to do it, people are saying they won't do it, and then it's like stop and let us try and resolve this first. Once you stop, now it becomes difficult. Accident has no respecter of persons. It can happen to anybody. We need the support of everybody, including the media. Sometimes, for me personally, it is the media also sometimes whips it in the negative direction. What are you doing to the drivers? And giving the drivers all the platform to say that they won't accept it. When we know that by law, this is the way to go. And also, not just by law, we are protecting the human being. What would we gain as a country if we all die and leave our resources behind?
I was very handsome like you. I was doing everything like the way you are doing it today. But look at my hand now. Sometimes if I go out, and when we went to Kaba funeral, when we went to Ebony's funeral, try to greet some people, the way they remove their hand from me, it can happen to you too. So please, today that you have your leg, you have your hands, you can do any movement, please take care of yourself, because you don't know what tomorrow brings. Don't come to us. We don't want to be part. We don't want you to be part of us. We really want to be part of your situation. Now that you are okay, please be careful. Watch yourself. Otherwise, accident can change your situation.
Safety is not cheap. If you go to countries that have gone up high and they have low accident rates, they have put money into it and they are ensuring that they have their safety on their roads. It is not cheap. You have to spend so that you'll be rewarded positively. We will spare the beds in the hospitals for other the cancers and others, but accidents can be prevented. So if we are occupying maybe about 40% of the beds in the hospitals, then what are we doing as a nation to ourselves? All our resources are going into the hospitals and paying for bills, etc. I don't think that's what we want.
Some of the students lost their parents through accident, and some too didn't die, but they're seriously injured and they cannot work to cater for their kids in school. So I promised myself that if I get a chance, I'll pay their school fees. And if I get a chance, I'll go to hospitals. Those have been detained. Sometimes they discharge some people which did not able to get money to pay. They detain them. I'll go and I pay for them. I started, and Adam TV were able to show all these things, and it's on the online and everywhere. That I went to most 8 to 10 hospitals. And each hospital, I paid not less than 12,000 Ghana cedis. And I went to the schools to pay the fees too. So when I go, I just go to the headmaster and ask about the accident victims, children in the school. They should bring their receipt and their bills. I'm ready to pay.
For a family that has lost 2 young members, punishment for whoever is held responsible for the accident will do little to ease their pain. But if the death of Priscilla and her son Jaden will bring about positive change, then perhaps her husband can bear with his painful loss.
I believe that this incident, as tragic as it is, if only we can learn from it and do things better, then we can save someone else's family, someone else's wife or husband. It's unfortunate I happen to lose relatives, but I believe that if we can take lessons from this and put them into use, we are going to save some other families. And I think that will be more important than having to actually sue somebody for what has already happened.
We should plead with the government to show more concern for the life of Ghanaians, for the welfare and well-being of Ghanaians, sincerely in their hearts. They all the time lip service. That's what I see it. If they really are concerned with the life of Ghanaians, some of the accidents on the road, it could have been avoided easily because the government will take proper measures. They go to other countries to spend holidays, they see how it is developed. But why can't they do the same for Ghanaians? We have the money, we have the natural resources, everything we have. So what is our problem? What is our problem? Because they will always abuse the money. So my idea is that we should plead with the government to be more considerate, more compassionate, more loving, caring for Ghanaians.
Priscilla is a daughter like no other.
I remember the day when I went that my wife had brought forth a boy, a girl. She didn't tell me that she was going to bring forth a baby girl. And she was with my mother-in-law. But when I went there, I saw a very nice, beautiful baby. Hey, Ma, you have brought forth a baby. Oh, so that at that time there was a light off. So I went there and bought a light. And that girl was intelligent, no-nonsense girl. And she was clever, very, very intelligent. In school, first. Then she went to Yasantua. Then after that, she went to University Tech. Then after that, she got employment in Snappy. She was very good. very giving, very religious, spiritual. Morally, she was good. She was very serviceable, serving all the time. With the last thing, I didn't know that she had given money to my daughter to buy me Milo. Drinks and milk, provisions, money, everything. The last one money she gave me 5 million.
She's a wife like no other.
It was through her encouragement and support that actually made it possible for me to be in Australia. So for me, I think that is just how I can capture everything about her. That she was actually somebody who was a best friend, who was a counselor, who was a real support. More often than not, when we say that the husband and the wife will be one, we don't actually understand it very well. But for me, having had opportunity to live with someone like my wife, I actually say to the glory of God that she was a real helper.
And a mother to 2 beautiful 7-year-old twin girls who have now been denied precious moments with their mom as they grow up, like many other children whose parents have been taken away from them. There is no doubt that death awaits us all, but no one deserves to depart this world in such a painful and tragic manner, not when these senseless deaths can be prevented. Certainly, losing human lives through reckless driving and bad roads shouldn't be tolerated by a country that needs its young people working hard to transform the nation.